Wally Show, and this is really cool because if you love the Monday School segment I do every day where I kind of synopsize sermon from my church over the weekend, you're going to love this guy. Now, if you think my theology is flawed, then you're probably not going to like this guy because it all comes from him. He is my Jeremiah Wright, if you will. We got Pastor Pete from Crosspoint. Thanks, dude. I appreciate you coming in, man.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. And your theology usually is flawed to some degree.
Yeah, because I could see you listening to the Monday schools and going, I didn't say that.
That's right. Yeah. He totally twisted my words.
Exactly. But you know what? I'll tell you, man, those Monday schools are a big deal for a lot of people. You know, because some people that listen here don't go to church, you know.
Right.
And I don't recommend that, obviously, but sometimes it's just coming back into faith, and it's a good way that they find, you know, solid doctrine in a very short thing. Have you ever considered doing shorter messages at church?
Would it make it easier for you?
Yes, it would, actually. You know what? If you could just send me your notes, that way I could sleep.
I'll just shoot it to you. Shoot you like the 2-minute, you know, kind of overview of it.
That would be awesome, man. Now, also, too, we're going to talk about his new book, Empty Promises, that he has out right now as well. If you have any questions that you've been kind of wrestling with faith, you can text those 765-88-WALLY, and we'll actually answer a few of those later. 765-88-WALLY, any questions that you have. Because the thing I like about Pete is he's very learned, scholarly, and I remember one of the first times I met you when I first moved up here, we went to lunch at Chili's, and I hit him with about 5 really deep spiritual conundrums and questions that I really needed solved so I could go deeper in my faith, and his answer was, I don't know.
I still have nightmares about that lunch.
Well, I mean, because I was asking you, like, the questions that there aren't answers for.
Yeah.
But somehow I had to figure it out, you know. But you actually through the sermons and stuff have helped me. Those big questions of like, why do bad things happen to good people?
Yeah.
And like through your sermons have helped me understand that God doesn't owe me an explanation, and I don't know why, but I have to be okay with that.
Yeah. To be okay with the fact that there are some questions that just don't have answers. I just don't.
That's hard, though. Like, for me, because I always took it from the standpoint of I want to defend my faith to somebody. When somebody says, well, why does your God do this? And I go, I don't know. Like, I always thought that was weak.
Right.
And so it's hard to come to grips with that and be like, all right, well, this is the fact that I don't know. But right. I appreciated your honesty, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I've learned over the years not to make up answers. If I don't know, just say, you know, that's a great question. I need to pray about that. I need to figure that out. I'll look in scriptures, but I really don't know.
Because as long as you're seeking answers, I think that's half the battle. Because it's okay to question. Would you not agree?
Absolutely. I think we should question. I love the questions. I love people like you who you know, will just fire the most crazy random questions because it gets me thinking about my faith from a different angle. Because there are certain things that over time you just start to think, you start to believe that you know it, you figured it all out, and then someone like you comes along to ask some questions, comes from a different angle, and you're like, well, do I really believe that?
Yeah.
Does the Bible really say that?
And when you answer somebody else's question, it does help you go deeper in your own faith.
Absolutely.
You know, like I know that for me, like 'cause people ask me questions all the time, and I'm just going to start giving them your number.
Right. Yeah.
It'll cut down on my email time for sure. But I want to get to the book and the reason behind the book and why this is important. It's called Empty Promises, and we'll do that in 5 minutes with Pete from Crosspoint Church here in Nashville on The Wally Show. This is The Wally Show, and today we have Pastor Pete from Crosspoint Community Church in Nashville on the show. He is the guy that is responsible for the Monday schools. It's his sermons that I basically synopsize. And personally, dude, in all seriousness, like, I've gotten so much from you that I actually owe you like a debt of gratitude and a thank you. I've learned so much more about faith, and it's balanced my own personal life out just, you know, learning from you. And I'm real stubborn. Like, I don't say that I learn from people a lot. And so, like, I actually thank you, and probably people that listen to the show can thank you because I've chilled out a little bit.
Oh, man. Well, that means a lot to me. And I just feel like we're all on this journey together. We're learning from each other and growing and, you know, sharpening each other. And so we're all glad to see this growth in your life, Wally.
So now Pete has a book. His first book was Plan B. I thought this would be Plan C, but you went a different direction.
Yeah, I opted for another.
It's called
direction.
Empty Promises, and I love that you have a fortune cookie on the front. It shows how far that faith has come. I talked about fortune cookies one day as a joke on the air, and somebody went nuts on me about how that's a sin and all this other stuff. I'm like, man, just chill, please.
This is the day of the release, so this could be the calm before the storm. We'll see.
I hope so. I hope you get a little. I'm tired of taking all the flack. So the book is called Empty Promises. What prompted you to actually write this? Where did the idea for this book come from for you?
Well, I think for me that I have seen this natural drift in my life over time, where I have this deep longing for worth and for significance and for value, for beauty. I want my life to count.
You're beautiful, for the record.
Thank you so
You're
much.
very beautiful,
right
man.
There, you just met part of my need right there.
There you go.
And then what I see in my life, though, is this drift to look for all of these things and all these places that the world says, hey, if you do this, if you look like this, you're going to be satisfied. And then the reality is over and over and over and again in my life, I've accomplished what the world said I needed to accomplish, only to be left feeling very empty and even more unsatisfied than when I started the journey.
It's a crazy vicious cycle because it's always that next thing. If then. It's always an if then. If I get this, then I'll be happy. And that then never fills up, man, for sure.
And it's crazy deception that we buy into to think, okay, I have this and this doesn't satisfy me. But more of what doesn't satisfy me might satisfy me.
That was one of the biggest things. I think it was Ice Cube talking about Whitney Houston's death and how he was like, it's so sad. What do you do when you've got everything and you've had and tasted and experienced everything and you're still not happy? That's why you downward spiral. Now,
absolutely.
We know that answer is Jesus, but people don't always find that out, sadly, before they die.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from that funeral, Kevin Costner, I don't know if you saw his quote, but he said, "The Whitney I knew was still wondering if I'm good enough, am I pretty enough? Will they like me? It was what made her great and what caused her to stumble in the end."
Wow.
And I thought that's so true. I mean, that's all of us to some degree. I mean, she at a very high magnified level. But for all of us, it's what drives us. And it's also what will take us down if we don't call it what it is.
The thing is, too, we're talking to Pastor Pete from Crosspoint Community Church. His book, Empty Promises, is out. The thing about it, I think a lot of it is how we view God. I think that colors how our actions and our behaviors. Like, if we see him in one way, then we act this way. If we see him another way, we act this way, and stuff like that. Have you found that to be kind of true?
It's true, yeah. Your perceptions always define your relationships, and it's very true of God, too. So if you see God as this cosmic cop that's always out to get you,
right,
you're always going to fear him, right? If you see God as this cosmic vending machine that's always going to give you what it is that you want, you're only going to go to him whenever you need something. So your perception of that relationship with God, of who God is, changes everything about that relationship.
Now, there's something in the book that I actually want to talk about here in 5 minutes. And by the way, if you have a question, 765-88 Wally, 765-88 Wally. You can text any kind of spiritual, Christian culture question, whatever. We'll address that as well if you want to text those in. But there's something that is in the book about seeking God's basically the things we do in order to gain God's approval, and how just completely jacked up and impossible that is. And I want to talk about that with you in 5 minutes with Pastor Pete from Crosspoint. I go there. Community Choice. A choice. I just got Jewish all of a sudden. Going to choice. This is the Wally Show, and today on the show we're joined by Pastor Pete. He is the pastor of Crosspoint Community Church in Nashville, and it's where I go. So if you hear the Monday schools, which are like the short little synopsis of a sermon, that's the guy. This is a guy that actually has made a huge difference in my life personally. And I love what he has to say. And now you actually, if you don't even live here, can take advantage of some of the insight and the knowledge that he has that can help you. He has a book called Empty Promises. And in the book, dude, you talk about something called sin management. And I love this concept. Break that down, man, because that's really cool.
Well, for me, I think so much of Christianity focuses on this idea of sin management, or what we could call behavioral modification.
Right.
All right? So people come to church, and we typically base our sermons or our Sunday school classes off, don't do this, don't do that, the
rules.
All the rules, right? But really what Jesus taught us when he was here on this earth was that he was not so worried about trying to master external Christianity as much as he was trying to help teach us really what's going on in your heart. And so in this book, what I really tried to do is approach it from saying, let's look at what's the sin beneath the sin, right? What is it about your heart that makes you want to be so self-preoccupied, right? What is it going on in your heart that makes you think that you're going to be somebody if you make a few more dollars next year?
Right.
What is it about your heart that makes you want to sleep with somebody who's not your husband or your wife? Right? What is that that's going on in your heart? What's the sin beneath the sin?
Because you can alter that behavior. Like, you can all day long go, hey, I've never cheated on my wife. But if inside your heart, you're still lusting after other women or what have you, and you haven't really solved anything. You just haven't, you've altered your behavior without altering your heart. And I think, in my opinion, that's what Jesus has always been concerned of, is our heart condition.
Yeah, and exactly, that's a whole point that Jesus made. So what we often want to do in the church, what we want to do in Christianity is if your heart is kind of a home, we want to rearrange the furniture a little bit.
Make it look good.
Yeah, we want to come in and we want to dust it up a little bit. In the reality, look out the window and there's God with a wrecking ball, right? Because he's like, we got a lot of work to do here, And so it's not just about cleaning things up. And so in this book, what I wanted to help people do is to say, there are probably certain doors in your heart that you're not willing to walk through on your own. So let me help you. Let's open some of these doors. Let's go a little bit deeper and let's talk about the sin beneath the sin.
Okay. For example, Zach. Zach has a lot of sin in his life.
I know that.
Just ridiculous amounts. How would we open the door on Zach's sin? How do you get someone to take that first? And I can't. They're so bad. I can't even talk about them on the radio. Some of the stuff that's in his life.
Right.
And it's so nice to be able to sit here from my position and be a mentor to him and talk about his sin, because I don't have much, some, none. And so that's kind of a nice position to be in, right?
Well, when you take care of all your sin, you have to start focusing on other people's
Exactly. I owe it to them. Now that I got really free time.
Right. That's the goal. The goal of having freedom is to help other people discover freedom.
That's the problem. I think that's what we've done a lot. And I'm not going to bash the church. I love the church. I believe in being plugged into a good church. And I know in the past I've seemed critical of it, and I don't want to do that. I think it's less about the church and more about our hearts, that we've tended to look at other people's sin and we rank the sins somehow to make ourselves maybe look better.
Yeah, we do it all the time. And so almost everyone listening right now has a list of sins that they think are inexcusable to God.
Right.
So we create these sins over time, right?
Like Zach's.
Exactly.
All of them.
And so when you ask, what sins do you think make God the most angry? I can guarantee you what sins you think make God the most angry.
Right.
They're the sins you don't struggle with.
100%.
Right?
100%.
So it's a way of making you feel better about yourself spiritually, to try to rank yourself in that way. And we have to get to this place where we realize, at the end of the day, there's some hypocrisy in all of us. And yet we have this God that ferociously loves us in the midst of those failures.
There you go.
He really does.
There you go. And that's what the book is all about. Maybe you've wrestled with some of those questions and struggled with that stuff, and this could be something that could help you out. The book is Empty Promises with Pastor Pete, dude. And I appreciate you coming in and being on the show. Thank you, man.
It's an honor.
Appreciate it. I'll see you Sunday.
You bet.
I'm not going to have my tithe this week, though. A little tight.
I was late. I know. That's my penalty.
Exactly. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. This is the Wally Show, and Pastor Pete tried to escape because I'm sure he has important things to do with the release of his new book, Empty Promises. But I grabbed him on his way out because I wanted to take a couple questions from people that have texted things in. And like this one here says, I've heard a lot of people say that they remember the date they were saved. Is it bad that I don't remember my date?
Oh, I don't know where that idea is coming from. I've heard that a lot lately.
Really?
This idea, you have to know the date. If you don't know the date, you're not saved.
Like somehow it didn't take.
Yeah, so I think Romans 10:9 doesn't say if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart God raised him from the dead and remember your date,
right,
you will be saved.
Yes.
So I don't see any biblical backing for that.
I get it, but I never had that white light conversion.
Yeah. I don't know my date. I know the
either.
year
Right.
that I made that decision to follow Christ. But,
See, yeah, that's the thing. I went to a Christian school that would have chapel every week, and they would scare you to death. Like, it was like a crazy, like, scary type thing. And I got saved in high school probably 15 times. Like, I just wanted to avoid hell, you know? And
totally.
stuff. And it wasn't until later in life where I do believe I was saved, but then my faith became real as an adult when it became my own later. So, yeah, I don't think the date thing is all that important.
It's kind of personally sounds like a ploy to get your baptism numbers up or something.
Yeah, maybe so. All right, now here's a real quick one. We have about a minute and a half. My father-in-law passed away from cancer and had to suffer 6 months. Why? Go. That's tough, though, and you got about a minute.
It's really tough. I mean, the reality is, I don't know that I have a great answer for that, other than the fact that we live in a broken world. And we know that from the time that sin entered this world, there are these things that happen, whether they are tornadoes, whether they're hurricanes, whether they're watching a loved one die from cancer. There's some painful things. But what I do know is Scripture is very clear about this. God is most powerfully present, even when he seems most apparently absent. He is there and he's working in your life. And I can't imagine a loss like that. But if you'll lean into him during this time, you'll actually see him in this moment.
Because you have a choice. You can either point people to God or away from God in these moments. And you can run to or away. And I've learned to run to, even in my own lack of understanding of the situation, because my life seems to work better when I do that than when I choose to fight God, because that's a choice.
Yep.
And unfortunately, bad things happen to good people. And we don't see the whole scope of the plan, because I know when my mother-in-law died, it wrecked my mom and it hurt. We hurt to watch her. But in the midst of her suffering, she wasn't concerned about herself. She was concerned about everybody else and pointing as many people to God as she could.
Wow.
And so in the midst of that, you go, oh, that's God. I didn't see it at the time because you were so sad, but looking back, you go, God had his hand all through that situation, you know?
Oh, that's powerful.
So there you go. That is a good question, and you can get the answers to a lot of other of life's conundrums in his book, Empty Promises, which is out right now.
Music that's true.